Video, I'm going to be reviewing a fragrance that I had kind of briefly reviewed, but not really. At the time, I didn't own it. I just went into a local Macy's, I believe it was, or Dillard's. Oh, no, it was actually Sephora, and sprayed my hand with it because I wanted to try it out. I sprayed my arm with it, and then came back and kind of spoke to it. I now actually picked it up because the more I thought about it, the more I really wanted it. I mean, I really enjoyed it at the time. This is the newest release from Dior, and this is the newest from the Sauvage line. It's Sauvage Elixir. A lot of you have, obviously, everybody's probably heard about it by now. It's not a cheap fragrance. It runs for about $150 for a 2-ounce bottle. So most of the Sauvages are a 3-ounce bottle, a 3.3 ounce, 3.4, 100 ml bottle. And this is a 2-ounce, and this is quite a bit more than most of the Sauvages, with the exception of maybe the Parfum, but the Parfum is a bigger bottle. So it is expensive per milliliter. Certainly more expensive than the other ones. I will say this, though. Performance on this is insane. The one spray I had, I was smelling for hours, and it was projecting. So you probably only need to go with about 3 sprays, 2 or 3 sprays, certainly less than what you would use with any of the other versions of Sauvage. Meaning that this 6-ounce should last you at least as long as the 3.3 ounce would. So when you think of it like that, this actually is not a bad price. But when you just look at it price per milliliter, it's not, the cheapest thing out there. Clearly, it's up there with some niche offerings. The box design presentation is certainly trying to take it in a more upscale way. It resembles a lot of niche, packages where it looks like it just pulls up. And then you're gonna see the fragrance inside. It's got the normal cellophane on it, the Dior logo on top, batch code information, everything on the bottom. So let's just get into it. I am excited to finally have this in my collection. And again, I was never a huge fan of the original Sauvage, but I'll get more into that when we start talking about the actual scent itself. So this box is actually thick. Try not to drop the fragrance on the ground here, but it is actually a pretty thick cardboard box. It's cardboard, but it is thick. You can see the milliliter on the bottom there, 2.5 ounce. And then, again, it lifts up. It's a really cool presentation. The inside of the top's got a little hole for the cap to sit in. This sits in there very snugly. You could even just display it on your shelf like that if you wanted to. The bottle's really cool. It's got this indented kind of inlay on the front where it says Sauvage Elixir. Certainly looks more upscale than the new ones. It's got a big indent in the bottom, concave. Apparently, for some reason, Dior was excited about that. Honestly, to me, it just makes it look like, oh, how can we get a larger bottle without adding more juice? Because that certainly is taking up a lot of volume. Anyway, cool bottle. Normal magnetic Dior cap. This is nice. Self-aligning cap as well. It's got the little bumblebee in there, or bee in there. And that's one thing to really look for if you're looking for fakes. Okay, so a lot of Dior Sauvage fakes, they will not have that bee inside the cap. Another very obvious thing is a lot of times they either won't have a magnetic cap or they'll have a magnetic cap, but it doesn't auto-align. And what I mean by that is every time you put this cap on there, well, if I can get it to do it, every time you put it on there, it'll realign to the same position if you try to put it in the wrong spot. So if you get a fake, it'll be magnetic and it'll stick on there, but it's not gonna go back to the same position, so it won't twist. Anyway, that's just a quick thing on that. Bottle looks really good. And these normal Dior sprayers. I'm gonna get into the notes real quick. So the original Sauvage has bergamot and pepper in the opening. Okay, the top notes. And then it's got in the mid Sichuan pepper, lavender, pink pepper, vetiver, patchouli, geranium, and elemi. And then in the base, you get the ambroxan that it's known for, the cedar and the labdanum. And if you look at the elixir, there is no ambroxan in the base at all. It's licorice, sandalwood, amber, patchouli, and Haitian vetiver. So you will notice there was not only is there no ambroxan, but there's also the addition of licorice, amber, and sandalwood. Which gives it this kind of just depth and darkness and spicy kindness that wasn't there in the base All right. Now, it doesn't have woods other than the sandalwood, but does have vetiver, which is kind of going to give it that dry vetiver or kind of dry woody feel to it. Now, the original has vetiver in the mid, whereas this doesn't. But they both have vetiver, it's just kind of the placement of it. The only note listed in the middle of this is lavender, and that's in both. Okay. Whereas the original has two different types of pepper, so just one pepper and pink pepper, as well as patchouli and geranium. Now, in this, the lavender is amped up a lot. So the lavender is not only there, but it is a lot more prominent. And again, the notes in the original on the top, you get bergamot and pepper. In this, you get more spices. You're getting cinnamon, nutmeg, cardamom, and then you're getting the grapefruit instead of the bergamot. So this is all around a much spicier, a much darker, deeper, scent profile than the original. The original was a Broxton bomb with citrus and pepper, loaded with pepper. You had 3 different types of pepper in there. And so this certainly, in that regard, kind of leans itself, the elixir kind of gives this idea of something more of quality, of more depth, again, darker, and this certainly goes in that scent profile, okay? So what does it smell like? And I've done this, so there's other reviews, my other reviews, I touched on this, other people have reviewed this. Some people said this is nothing like Dior Sauvage, should have called it something else. No, it's definitely got the Sauvage DNA. Now, it does take a big turn from the original line. It's got the nice Dior atomizer, these amazing atomizers. So initially what you're going to notice as soon as you smell it, it's not that Ambroxan. There's Ambroxan there. So people said there's no Ambroxan. There certainly is Ambroxan, but it's not the Ambroxan that you're familiar with Sauvage, where it's, it's a lot to handle. It's kind of, in my opinion, cloying. It smells very synthetic. The Ambroxan's there and it opens it up and it starts it off. You're immediately going to get the lavender there as well. But again, it's toned down a lot. The lavender's amped up. The Ambroxan's toned down. So much so that they didn't even list it, but it certainly is there. And you're going to get this nice spiciness about it. It's going to kind of remind you, if you smell Dior Sauvage Parfum, the spiciness is kind of along those lines where it's almost like this very subtle, not quite, but almost cola-like vibe that you're going to kind of pick up in here. And it's from all those spices. There's certainly that woodiness about it. And the most prominent, though, is going to be that lavender. The lavender is very much there. This is certainly, I think, the most mature from the line. It's certainly the most grown up. It's certainly the most, just, in my opinion, interesting from the line. I wanted to get this. Again, I am not a huge fan of Sauvage. Mainly because I think the EDT is very juvenile. It's very cloying. It's very loud. It's very, hey, look at me. It's great for teenagers. It gives me a headache. And I think it comes off very mature. It's not as well blended. It's scratchy. It's screechy. The Ambroxan smells very chemically and synthetic, and it is. The EDP is a slightly more mature version of that. And I'm going to do a whole overview of the whole Sauvage line, but I'm just going to touch on it here. It adds in vanilla. It gives its depth. The Ambroxan's dialed back slightly, but it's still very much there. EDP is also a powerhouse as well as the EDT. So the EDP is a slightly more grown-up version of the EDT, and it adds a little more depth, a little more sensuality to it with the vanilla. Then you go into the Parfum. The Parfum is a much more mature version of the same DNA. The Ambroxan's very much dialed back. It's there, but it's very subtle. And it focuses more on, again, kind of spiciness and this depth, this darker side. But this took that, the Elixir took that, went a whole nother level with it. And in doing so, they upped the lavender to kind of change the scent profile. You have to love lavender because it is in there. But it's a very nice lavender. Again, there's these other kind of oriental spices that come in. You get the cardamom, which gives it this kind of sensuality. So does lavender in general. You don't really pick up the licorice in its own, but it is there with the other spices creating this spiciness about it. And it's not an overly sweet spicy. It's not like Spice Bomb or Extreme or something like that. It's there's a sweetness to it, but it's not cloyingly sweet. It's not juvenile sweet. It's not like Wanted by Night. It's not Jean Paul Gaultier's Ultramalt. It's not something like that where the sweetness comes off very, you know, just kind of, again, juvenile. It is very mature. I think this is better suited for people that are 30 years and older. I think, you know, the EDP would work for people in their mid 20s to upper, getting into kind of the 30s. And I think past that, this is better for that. The reason I wanted this is I wanted something I could wear to work. I wear a suit and tie because I'm an attorney. And the original is just too cloying in the courtroom. EDP can be too. And, you know, I've smelled people wearing the original in court, and to me, it was too much. The Parfum is better, so I was wearing the Parfum before this. I just didn't like it as much. This smells really good to me. It's that kind of fragrance that shows, it kind of exudes like class. You know, it smells high end, but it smells grown up and mature. And it also has this kind of seductiveness about it. You know, so anyway, this is by far my favorite from the line. You just have to like lavender, but like I said, they toned down the Ambroxan. Certainly still there. So is the Sauvage DNA. This is not another fragrance in the sense that a completely different fragrance. It certainly fits in the Sauvage line. It's just of better quality. And my understanding is, again, from when I wore 1 or 2 sprays and it lasted forever. I smelled the next morning. I have not gone into some full wearing yet, though, because I just got this. So I'm going to test it out. I'll do a follow-up in the comments like I normally do. Speaking to longevity. Speaking to how it develops further as I've actually worn it out. But I love this. I absolutely love this. I think as of 2021, this is my favorite release so far. Still got a little bit left. That could change. But this is my favorite so far. It's my scent profile. I love masculine fragrances. I love masculine fragrances that have sensuality about them. And I love fragrances that I feel are appropriate for the settings I got to wear them in and my age. And I'm only in my 30s, but I find the other versions to be a lot more juvenile. This is certainly a lot more appropriate for what I would, you know, feel comfortable wearing and in the settings I'm wearing it in. But again, this is really good. Like I said, I'll do a full breakdown of all the Sauvage line in a different video, but I just wanted to hit on this real quick because I know a lot of people were curious. I know there's been a lot of other people that have reviewed it as well, but I just wanted to say kind of what I thought about it.